So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the damage caused by the delay in the second lockdown in December, and the fact that 27,000 extra people died due to the delay. This should surprise absolutely no one. When the government said they were following the science, they need to explain exactly who they were listening to and what they said, because we know that according to Sage, they called for a lockdown far before the government actually went into lockdown. So this should surprise absolutely no one, but there are still people out there who seem to think that Boris Johnson did the best job he could and, listen to the science, etc., when I'm going to tell you people, you're wrong. So, delaying the winter lockdown caused up to 27,000 extra deaths in England, the Resolution Foundation think tank has claimed, as it accused the government of a huge mistake which should be central to any public inquiry into the UK's handling of the pandemic. So they should ask why the government delayed the lockdown, under whose advice was this? Because if it's the case that they were balancing the economics against the science, that's dumb, because in the end, by delaying the lockdowns, it meant that the lockdowns had to be far more aggressive and last longer, which therefore damages the economy further. By dealing with this thing early on, it's much better for the economy and for the people in this country. Something that the government have failed to realise. In an assessment of policy over the last year, it said, let's find out who actually wrote this report. Resolution Foundation think tank wrote this. In an assessment of policy over the last year, it said delaying the start of the lockdown in January, despite evidence of fast rising cases before Christmas, led to a fifth of all fatalities caused by the virus. So had we locked down early, really clamped down on this thing, we would have been in a much better position. It said these could have been avoided if restrictions were put in place quickly enough to prevent the death rate rising from early December. So you can see how aggressive the spike is. From around the 6th of December, it spikes massively. These are deaths per day. While it praised the vaccination program, which inevitably now is going to slow down due to supply issues from the EU and, the nature of, the EU potentially reducing exports, which I don't really blame them for that much, to be honest. Delivering jabs 3 times faster than Europe, that's going to change. So while it praised the vaccination program and the financial support for workers, which included 6,700, on average for each household, the thing is, they didn't do enough for self-employed people and people who received sick pay, which is something the article mentions later on. So it said ministers on lockdowns were repeated. Lockdown mistakes were repeated 3 times. It added that allowing extra deaths did not limit the economic impacts, but rather increased them because only precipitated longer and more onerous lockdowns, like we mentioned. So, I would say that the government did the bare minimum when it came to the furlough scheme, because if they didn't do the furlough scheme, would be in major trouble, would be in way more trouble right now, and you would see way more, once evictions are allowed. I think the evictions ban is longer. I'm not sure, because I haven't heard of mass evictions yet. You would see massive more evictions if the furlough scheme was not in play. Honestly, there's stuff going on outside this summer. I'm really sorry. Going timidly and late on lockdowns has been a disaster, causing many thousands of avoidable deaths, said Mike Brewer, chief economist at the foundation. Furthermore, delays to restrictions have meant them needing to be tougher and longer lasting than in other countries, thereby worsening the economic damage. So these are things that we've mentioned. COVID-19 pandemic has touched everyone, but lower income families have borne the brunt of the crisis in terms of their lives and livelihood. They shouldn't be forgotten as we look to rebuild post-pandemic. We should never forget, the kind of danger key workers put themselves in, and also the fact that care homes and other things were not protected. Italy announced their national lockdown on the 9th of March. Boris Johnson waited 2 more weeks before doing the same. In September, after cases started rising again and the government's scientific advisors urged a circuit breaker lockdown, the government did not introduce an England-wide lockdown for over 5 weeks. So it took them 5 weeks to actually announce any kind of lockdown, and the scientists wanted a circuit breaker lockdown. That would have been 2 weeks, just straight lockdown, and then release. As long as the numbers look okay. The government didn't do that, and we were in lockdown for weeks. We still are in lockdown, in part due to the government's actions when it came to that delaying that second lockdown. So we've spoken about that. Christmas was semi-cancelled. It was only on December 19th that we were told that to reduce inter household contact, and that you couldn't see everyone during the week and stuff like that. And despite that, still surging numbers, a full return to national lockdown was not announced until the 4th of January, by which point we were seeing over 50,000 cases a day across the UK. So, the government's delaying the lockdown is the thing that caused so many problems. If they dealt with it earlier, we would not be in the situation we are in now. We would not be the most economically damaged economy in the G8. So amazingly, household income has been broadly similar in 2020 to 2019. That's mainly down to the furlough scheme, but because I think that's impacted most people or helped most people that would have been unemployed. But obviously, we know that self-employed people were not helped, and there were other groups of people that were not helped massively either. However, it said the most glaring economic policy was on sick pay. 2 million low earners receive only £96 a week if they are sick, which is a joke. Which is absolutely a joke. This meant that the incomes of people being asked to stay at home to save lives was not protected, and it also disincentivized people on low incomes from getting tested, because if you get tested and you've got COVID, you're gonna have to stay home for about 2 weeks or 10 days, depending on at which point of the pandemic it was. And so you can't, if you're working full time, say you're making a couple hundred a week, say 300-400 a week, right? Now your wage has been cut massively to £96 a week. Yeah, you might save money on petrol or bus fare, but you're going to lose massive amounts of money and you're going to be stuck at home. That's one of the reasons why people didn't get tested as much. This undermined the stay-at-home message and limited the effectiveness of test and trace and increased infections. Test and trace, which was a joke in itself, but we've spoken about that before. A government spokesperson said, "Our focus throughout the pandemic has been to protect the NHS." That's a lie. Save lives. That's a lie. And we've been guided by the data and scientific advice. That's also a lie. So there's about multiple lies there in the space of 2.5 sentences or 2 sentences. And so we know they didn't really protect the NHS because it was constantly at full capacity in multiple hospitals. We know they didn't save lives because we had one of the worst death rates in the world. And they haven't been guided by the science, because they delayed a lockdown by 5 weeks, despite SAGE saying they need to do a circuit breaker immediately. I think it's during September or October, I can't remember exactly which month it was, but they ignored the advice for about 5 weeks. SAGE told them not to allow meetings for Christmas. They still did it. So yeah, it's a joke. So like we said, multiple lies there, and the government saying, the spokesperson saying, in December, as soon as we became aware of the new variant was significantly more transmissible than other strains, we acted quickly and decisively to introduce stricter measures. So, despite the deaths and the case rates going up, as soon as they realise, this thing's more dangerous, the new variant's more dangerous, we need to act, rather than realising the situation we were in, and we were in massive amounts of danger. Before they realised it was a new strain, a new variant. So it does tell you how stupid the government are, that had they acted quicker, this new strain wouldn't have spread as quickly, and it also wouldn't be one of the most dominant strains in the world right now. But, that's the government. Not only have they killed people in the UK, they have killed people around the world by allowing this new variant to get out of the UK, rather than listening to SAGE and locking down much quicker. And that is what frustrates me here. And anyone who actually believes that the government followed the advice is a bit stupid. Or sorry, not a bit stupid, very stupid. This pandemic has challenged healthcare systems around the world, but thanks to a wealth of experience, research and advice, we now have a vaccination program, numerous treatments, a test and trace system that is, a test and trace system that has carried out more tests than any comparable European nation, because they've had to, because our test and trace system sucks. So that means they have to carry out more tests because things spread quicker. Our governments didn't go into lockdown as quickly as they should have done, which meant that we needed to do more tests. Also, it looks like they're probably including lateral flow tests, which aren't very reliable anyways. So, those are, a non-starter already. You can issue loads of tests, but if they're unreliable, it's not going to help, is it? Really? You're going to give a lot of false positives. So yeah, this spokesperson's full of lies. It's not a surprise, and they wouldn't stick their name on it. I wonder why. So So yeah, as well as a world-leading genomic sequencing system to find new variants. The difference between how Japan and how the UK found new variants is crazy. How Japan did it is through airport testing, so they would detect new variants as people came in, and then they would get them to isolate, etc. How the UK did it was they would allow the virus to spread throughout the country, and then what they would do is then test people and realize, oh, we got a new variant here, we got a new variant here, we got a new variant here. And by allowing it to spread through the country, they realise there are many more new variants, rather than doing it how intelligently, how like Japan did, which is to say, we're going to test people at the airport, and if anyone has a new variant, we're going to log it. The UK will we'll let this thing spread and see how it acts. Need to see what it's like, this new variant of COVID. Is it nice? Is it not nice? So yeah, these people are idiots. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.